Dark Gothic spooky art dolls are my absolute favourite things to make, and with Halloween just a couple of months away, it gives me an excuse to get even darker and spookier. I usually end up making some sort of witchy doll for Halloween, but this year I wanted to step away from the stereotypical pointy witch hat and do something a little bit different. If you just found me, by the way, welcome. My name's Jo. I'm a full-time artist making creepy cute things on a narrowboat in Wales. I've been wanting to try out the lotus fibre that I bought last week, so I thought, what better than a crone? I feel like she needs some luxurious materials for her outfit. I have got some cotton velvet that I've got this for a commission a few years back. Now, usually I'm not great with velvet. I really don't like the texture of it, but cotton velvet, this one isn't too bad. And at the moment, my sensory issues are on a low, so I am able to work with this right now. If they're kind of kicking off, then sometimes I just can't even touch this. But at the moment, it's all right. So I think I'm going to use some of this burgundy cotton velvet and make a long hooded cloak with it. I've already sewn and turned the pieces. I'm going to make a 10 inch 26 centimetre doll. I'm thinking long black dress and a broomstick. I made some broomsticks last year. This is one that I made that didn't get sold. Some of them sold, but this one didn't. So I'm thinking I'll make something similar to this. I could have used this one, but I'm not kind of loving the colours on it for this doll anyway. I might use some more of this jute string, but I think I've got some broom twigs somewhere which would be perfect for it. I've got some birch sticks that I prepared last year. I sanded them and varnished them, and they've been sitting in a box not doing anything for a year, so one of these maybe has a broom handle. Other than that, I'm going to play it by ear, just see how it goes, have fun. The first couple of days when I start a new doll never feel much like fun. This is when I'm sewing all the pieces, stuffing them and jointing them all together. This part is pretty much the same on a lot of my dolls, so it kind of feels a little bit repetitive sometimes, but it's so important to get this bit right. If I slack on this bit now, then the end result isn't going to be what I want. So it's worth taking my time to make sure I get all those little details right first. So I stuffed all the pieces yesterday, and I've bead jointed the limbs and button jointed the neck. So the head now tilts from side to side, and that's nice and secure. The arms are bead jointed at the wrists, elbows, and I've put a bead on the top there on the shoulder. So those will be jointed onto the body after I've made the dress. This morning I've started painting some boots. The beads that I used for the knees, they're a little bit smaller than I wanted. I wanted to use some different beads which were kind of matching the width of the legs, but I only had one of them left, so I had to find some more, and the only ones I've got are almost as wide as the legs. They're a little bit narrower, but I think they fit okay. They seem to look all right anyway. So I've painted the first coat onto the boots. I need to cover those black stripes, so what I usually do is mix some black acrylic paint with some titanium white, and I'll add a bit of fabric medium, and that helps it sit better on the fabric and it stops it kind of bleeding into the fabric. So yeah, the first coat is generally a grey because it's a bit more opaque, but I think I could have added more of the white to this. It's a little bit dark. I do want the boots to be black, so I will be painting black over the top, but I've still got some of those stripes showing through, and if I just paint black onto that, then you're still going to see the stripes a bit. So I'm going to paint another coat of the grey onto those, and then I'll paint black on top, and then we'll add a bit of detail, I think. Okay, that's covered much better with the second coat. Can't see those stripes through there now, so I'm just going to go over that with another coat of black. One of the biggest challenges of working on a boat is that sometimes when you're trying to get a nice clean line around the edges, the boat can suddenly move, and then suddenly your nice clean line is ruined, and then you've got to kind of make a new line. But with boots like this, at least I can just take the line up a little bit further if I need to, and it's not going to be really detrimental. So I want to paint some detail on the boots in maybe a dark forest green. The only green I have at the moment is sap green. I could mix a green with some cadmium yellow, but I'm going to have a go with this. I'm going to take some of the grey that I mixed and add some green to it and just play around with it and see what colour we come up with. I don't use any specific formulas for colour mixing. I know some artists can be very scientific about it, but I really like to just have a play with it and just kind of see what happens. I mean, you know, I'm never going to mix the same colour again, but my dolls are all one of a kind, so it all adds to the uniqueness of them, I suppose. That's quite nice. I'm going to add some slow dry medium to that so I can paint fine lines without it clogging and drying on the brush. I'm hoping that will be opaque enough. If not, I might have to just paint the lines in white or a light grey first, and then paint the green over the top. Let's just try a leaf first and see how that looks. Okay, that's quite transparent, so I'm going to go lighter first and then paint the green over the top. I think what I'm actually going to do is just add a bit of the green to the white, paint that first and then make it darker. The nice thing about working in acrylics is you can layer paints one on top of the other, and if you don't like a colour you can just paint over it. By the way, I'd like to thank Kat for the $10 super thanks. Super thanks are always greatly appreciated, but you don't have to spend money to support me. Just liking my videos and sharing them with someone you think might like them does a great deal to help me. So I decided to make that green a little bit lighter. It's still a nice forest green colour, and these paints do darken a little bit as they dry too, so it'll look a bit lighter as it's going on, and then it'll darken later. Once I painted all the leaves, I decided that they needed just a little bit more texture, so I've took some of the lighter green and I'm painting a little bit of that over the top to add a bit of variegation to the leaves. I just think it just gives them a bit more texture and it makes them pop a little bit more. Now, in a lot of cases, you can leave acrylics unvarnished. If I'm painting detail directly onto the fabric, using some fabric medium in that, then I don't tend to put varnish over the top. I don't find there's any need. But when I'm painting a solid coat of acrylic and then painting detail on top of that, I like to give it a coat or two of satin polyurethane varnish. Polyurethane varnish gives it a really tough, long-lasting coat. This one is by Vallejo. It's acid-free, so it doesn't go yellow over time if you're painting it on something light coloured. And because it's a satin finish, it just has a very similar finish to the acrylic paint, so you can't really see it. It just evens out the shine. So if you've got one colour that's a bit more shiny than another, then putting the varnish over the top evens out that colour. Also, when you've got a very thick coat of acrylic paint, it can remain a little bit porous and a bit sticky over time, so it can collect dirt. The polyurethane varnish seals it and stops it attracting dust and dirt, and it stops it sticking together as well if it's in storage over time. Now I'm shading around where the eyes are going to be with some Derwent Chromaflow pencils. These are a really nice, soft, blendable, high pigment coloured pencil. If you haven't seen my dolls before, they generally all have button eyes with some dark shading around the edges, and I tend to just shade the whole area behind the buttons, and that way I can get a nice smooth gradient kind of fading out around the edge, and also where the holes are going to be in the middle of the buttons. It's nice and dark behind them, so we don't have any of the pale coloured fabric showing through. I find it a lot easier to do it that way than trying to just draw a ring or shade a ring around the edges of where the buttons will be. I have tried making dolls in the past with different faces. I've tried painting faces in acrylics, and I do enjoy painting doll faces, but they never seem to do well. However I do the face, people just always comment that they prefer the button eyes and they prefer the minimalistic doll face. So that's what I always come back to, because that's just what seems to be popular. Although one of my dolls with a hand-painted face did find her way into a book at one point, a few years back now. I think you can still find it on Amazon. It was a book called The Art of Gothic, and it was just basically lots of pictures and short snippets about modern artists in the Gothic style around the world. So if you're interested, go and have a look. So it's a couple of days since I last recorded. I had a day away from doll making yesterday doing other things. I used to try and get a doll finished in one go on consecutive days without doing anything else in between. But I found that I always felt very rushed, and I felt like I had to get it finished, so I didn't put too much thought into it. And then sometimes I think I'd look back at the doll and think, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, and things I could have done better, and there's more details I wanted to put in. So now I'm trying not to rush, and I think sometimes it's good to take a day away and just have a think about it and come back to it with a fresh pair of eyes. So that's what I'm doing today. I got to the point of starting to make the clothing. I made a little bodice and some bloomers from some broderie anglaise, and I think they're looking really cute. This is all permanently fixed to the doll, so it's ladder stitched up the back. So next I need to make some sort of skirt to go over that. I want to make a long, luxurious floor length type skirt, and I also need to joint the arms, which I have here, and I want to start on that broomstick as well today. The broom twigs have had a couple of coats of Mr. Super Clear varnish, so now they're all nice and dry and sealed, so they're ready to go. And maybe I'll get on to making the cloak today too. Let's see how we get on. Making this cloak has taken way longer than I expected it to, and turned out to be a lot more complicated than it should have done. Initially I was gonna line it with something, but just having the limited space and nowhere to lay it all out flat, it was proving impossible to get the fabric lined up and to stay in position. So I ended up giving up on that idea. So I've just hemmed round the edges instead. And because this fabric is so heavyweight, and my little old machine struggles with heavier fabrics, even with a denim needle in the machine, it was struggling to go over the corners. So I ended up just gluing the bottom of it, which makes it look a lot neater than it would have done. That's still not quite dried, so you can still see a little bit of the glue. So we're almost there with it. I'm doing a running stitch around where the neck is going to be. She's going to have a big pointy hood, and I'm going to put some kind of fastener on it so she can take it on and off. And I think it is going to look awesome once it's all put together. So I've gathered that up. And we're starting to get an idea of the shape of it. I think I've got some hook and eye fastenings somewhere, which might be nice. Or I might have some sort of decorative clasp. I had a little stint of jewellery making a few years ago when I first started doll making, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do for a business. So I've still got quite a few jewellery making bits lying around, and I'm sure I've got something nice in there. So I'm going to have a look through my stash and see what I can find. And then once that's done, she needs a hair needle felting. It's now Sunday morning. I got quite a lot done yesterday, so I think there's another day's work to do on this little one. This is day 4 of making this one. As you'll have already seen, I got the cloak made yesterday. It's got a really big pointy hood, which I love. This will, once she's got her hair done, I think this will just kind of slip over the hair and give her a dark, witchy, moody kind of feel. So I didn't manage to find jewellery findings for the clasp. So what I've done is used a metal bead as a little button, and I've looped a little bit of velvet ribbon on the other side, so that should just loop around it, and I think that'll look pretty cool. While I was looking through the jewellery making stuff, I found this little bail, which is really cute. So I decided last night at quite late at night, while I was sitting watching some YouTube, I decided to make this little necklace. So I used some of the velvet ribbon and the little jewellery bail, and I found a sword charm, which I think fits perfectly. I've left the cloak quite long, so it'll kind of pool on the floor around her and kind of flare out. She could be stood up with a doll stand, I think, quite easily, because she's got the nice long skirt. But I think she could equally look good sitting on a shelf. But anyway, she needs hair because she's bald at the moment. So I'm going to dig out the lotus fibre, and she's going to have some nice white hair. I've never needle felted with lotus fibre before. If you didn't see my video last week, I was unboxing an order from World of Wool with quite a few new plant fibres, and lotus fibre was one of the new ones I've got to try out. So I'm going to try that now, and we'll see how it goes. The lotus fibre feels very, very soft and fine, but it also feels quite strong. It's got a lovely sheen to it. It's almost pearlescent. In some lights it kind of looks a little bit pinkish, and then when the light changes it looks more creamy. It's almost glowing. As I'm needle felting it in, I can feel some resistance. It feels very strong, a bit like viscose fibre. So I am feeling a little bit of friction on the needles, but it is going in quite easily and it seems to be staying in. As usual, I am using the Clover pen style felting tool and some 38 gauge needles. I will put some links to the tools and some of the materials I use in the description. I just keep felting the lotus fibre into the head, layer upon layer, until I cover the whole scalp area, and then I'll start arranging it a little bit on top. I weighed what's left of the lotus fibre after I finished felting, and I'd used 6 grams out of a 50-gram pack, so I think I'll get about 8 dolls out of this pack, which is really economical. Now all that's left to do is take some photos. I like to bring in a few bits from outside, some bits of ivy and whatever plants I can find. Sometimes I'll use some pebbles or crystals or anything around me that I think would suit the doll. If you've made it this far into the video, leave me some broomstick emojis in the comments. At the time of recording, this doll is available on my website. I'll put some links down below. I decided to name this one Ivy Widdershins. I'm going to leave another video on screen now that I think you're going to like, and I'll see you next time. Bye!